Hey, what's up, people? Today I want to talk about Cold Steel's Excel folders. Not the entire video is gonna be like the intro, but I will try to roll in as much of the footage that I have of me using these knives over the last couple of years as I speak. So, in front of me I have the Cold Steel Talvar XL, which has a lot of fingerprints on it. This is the Persian shaped blade with the upswept point here. In this case we have green G10 and DLC coded CTS XHP. This one is discontinued by now. This one was the first XL folder that I bought. And then we have the Cold Steel Espada Large. I didn't bought the X Large because the X Large wouldn't fit in frame here. I'm just kidding. I think the Large is already a really big knife and I didn't felt the need to buy an X Large. This one is the newest addition to Cold Steel's lineup, Espada lineup. We have the more affordable Espada here with the stonewash finish and the flat grind and OS 10 steel. Speaking of OS 10, we have the Voyager XL. In this case, we have the clip point version. And yeah, why do I own Cold Steel, some of the Cold Steel folders, XL folders? I always wanted to try them out. I used to think they're kind of ridiculous. Obviously, these are very huge knives, but I kind of changed my mind about them. When I bought my first one, I kind of I kind of realized that these are very fun knives to have around and to actually use. These are all designed as Marshall blades. Needless to say, I mean, we speak about Cold Steel, and these are intended to be Marshall blades. Are these the perfect self-defense or fighting style folders? Probably not for every situation. It's all about reach here. You have a lot of distance between you and your opponent with a blade like this, but it would be also at the same time, this makes it a little bit more uncontrollable if you do not have a lot of room to work with, especially if you need to get this out in a pinch and you do not have a lot of space, or you're already in a fight, especially if you go to the ground and something like this. To get something like this out of your pocket in a pinch is a little bit more difficult than with, let's say, a smaller fighting style knife. But that being said, they're definitely very effective. For the size, they are very lightweight and easy to carry. And I will kind of show you a size comparison for the people that have never handled one of these. Actually, let's take the Espada here for a size comparison. Here is a Buck 110. A lot of people are familiar with this knife. Here is an Opinel number 8, another very popular traditional knife. And then we have something more modern, Spyderco PM2, and a Cold Steel Recon 1 clip point. The Recon 1 is already a very big knife. We have 10 centimeters or 4 inch in the blade length here, but next to something like this, it feels a lot smaller. The Espada here has 13.7 centimeters in blade length, which is 5.4 inches, and an overall length of 31 centimeters or 12.2 inches. And the other two XL folders that I have here are about the same size, with just minor differences overall on the blade length. This is a very big knife, of course, but if you compare it, for example, here is a fixed blade. This is a Caber, or if you want to be historically correct, a Mark II fighting knife. And if you think about it, they have about the same overall length, but if you fold one of these up, you get a much more compact package, and it's a lot easier to take with you if you do not have as much room and if you do not want as much weight. I want to say though, the Espada is kind of not the perfect example for a lightweight XL folder. We have 263 grams, which is 9.2 ounces. This one is the heaviest out of all of them that I own. The Voyager here, for example, has 215 grams, which is 7.5 ounces, which is a very, very nice weight for the size that we have here. I mean, think about it. We have an overall length of 30 centimeters, so 12 inches. That's not a lot of weight for a knife that has full aluminum liners and is that big. It's not a very, very heavy knife, and the Talvar is also not that heavy, 231 grams, 8.1 ounces. These are not very heavy knives. And the reason for that is probably because they're not overly thick in blade stock. Usually we have like 3.7 millimeters in blade stock here, which is not too crazy for a knife like this. Cold Steel recently did a lot of the stuff that's a little bit smaller, but much more tanky, so much more thicker in blade stock. I'm thinking about the Cold Steel 4Max Scout, for example, and stuff like that. These are a lot more thicker and also heavier. So these are not ridiculously thick in their geometry. Also, I want to say that speaking of geometry, I mean, we have like, especially on this Voyager, we have a very slicey grind. So we have like, what do we have here? 0.3 millimeters here in the front section to 0.5. It's a little bit thicker here in the back section. That's 13 thousandths to 19 thousandths geometry wise. So it's quite slicey up here in this front section with that nice and thin tip that's supported by the swedge. Tip is center lined, so in the middle of the blade, and we have a nice belly here. So it's a super nice slicer. Food slicing, stuff like that is very, very enjoyable with this knife. For example, if you go on a car camping trip and you do not want to bring a kitchen knife that has a sheath, most kitchen knives obviously do not have a sheath. It's a lot easier to bring like a super large folder that you can do all your food chores with, and also a little bit of wood cutting and normal tasks that require a knife. Something like this is not very new. Cold Steel were not the first people that made XL folders. I'm thinking about that Opinel number 12 that has like exactly the same purpose, to be like a large folded kitchen knife or a very large knife for common tasks. Knives like this date back in history go back in history for a long period. I'm thinking about the Spanish Navajas. The Spanish Navaja is definitely the inspiration for this espada here, for example. But in more modern times, there are not a lot of people. Actually, there is no one that does something like this. I didn't bought these to be used as martial blades. I do think they're just kind of cool, and I do keep them around. If I want to carry something for self-defense and stuff like that, I usually take a much smaller blade. This is a discontinued Voyager Vaquero. They make this blade pattern here in an XL folder as well. But I think a 10 centimeter or 4-inch blade is just a lot more easier to carry with you. That being said, it would be very effective to be used for that. I think the Talvar is the best because it has a lot of movement speed out of all of these three here for that. And you can see that it can, if you do some bottle slashing, for example, you can see that it is really easy to wheel it around, and it's a really good slasher. The Espada with its thicker grind has a little bit more difficulties when doing something like this, but it excels at, for example, chopping down small branches or chopping up rope. The Espada is by far the best because it's the heftiest. You can feel this when you pick it up. All that weight then comes to use. It's not as good for normal tasks. I do not like this for example, food cutting or cutting up wood and something similar. The Espada is not so great for that. That's probably because they thicken up the grind and everything. I think they used to do them in hollow grinds. They are now fully flat grinds. All of these are flat grinds, by the way, but this one has a lot more thicker geometry. Yeah. For normal use, I have to say I do prefer something like a Voyager. This one is just a lot more neutral in grip. If you think about it, you can hold this in a hammer grip. You can hold this all the way up here. Get your thumb up here. Do some normal things as well. And if you need it, you can grab it all the way back here, and you get a lot of reach. For example, if you need to chop down something and you do not want to go get very close in there, you can use it from a little bit more distance. So the Voyager works really well for the normal task. I wouldn't chop too much with this. Obviously, this is a very thin geometry, and you shouldn't go overly crazy with this. The Espada lends itself a lot more, like I said, to chopping down stuff. But you should never forget that it's still a folding knife. I do not go overly crazy on these. I do only chop up very small branches. For those kind of things, it's not too bad. But I mean, it's still a folding knife, and if you do not want to get the blade wobbling around over the years, or you do not want to get blade play and not so secure lockup, you shouldn't go too crazy on it. But sometimes you forget because this feels so hefty, and this feels like a fixed blade. You sometimes forget that it's still a folder, and you just go a little bit too crazy on these. So you always should keep in mind this is still a folding knife. For example, here my Talbar that I have for the longest, I use this so much that now the blade wobbles around a little bit here inside the handle. I have to say though, the Talbar is quality-wise, out of the box, it was always the worst of all of these. The Talbars were just not built as nicely as the other ones here. The Espada has a really good build quality. It feels nice and solid. The Voyager, in my opinion, has always been one of the best or most well-made knives that Cold Steel ever produced. That's true for the large versions as well. Here's the Voyager clip point in a large version. Move this up here. Yeah, I did bought the XL version before I bought my large Voyager. And this completely messed me up because every 4-inch knife or 10 centimeter knife will feel a little bit small if you have been using an XL folder for a while. So this messes you up a little bit. I would highly suggest you to buy a large Cold Steel folder before you get into an XL folder. You can get a lot of use out of these. These are already big knives. They also have really good geometries. The AUS 10, as we speak about this, the AUS 10 is a good steel. I think it's one of the smartest moves that Cold Steel did over the last couple of years, changing from AUS 8 to AUS 10. I never liked Cold Steel's AUS 8. I think it was way too soft. The AUS 10 is really good stuff. It has a lot of edge retention, a lot more edge retention than you would expect from a steel like this. If you sharpen it up with, for example, diamond stones, you get a really long lasting edge. And I'll probably make another video about AUS 10 itself because it deserves to be talked about a little bit more. Yeah, so AUS 10 is good stuff. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Also, edge retention is kind of not what you need in a big folding knife like this, right? So for example, the Talbar here has CTS XHP. That's something you don't really ever need. You're not gonna bring CTS XHP to its full potential in a huge knife like this because you're not gonna slice up, like I said, thousands of cardboard boxes with something like this. It's a little bit too unwieldy for that. But for doing fun stuff, food slicing, chopping up rope, slashing bottles, this is the perfect knife. I do really enjoy my Talwar. I do really like the design on the Talwar. I always thought it was one of the best designs that Andrew Demko ever did. I really wish they would bring this back because this is a really good design. Quality wise, like I said, it's not the best that Cold Steel ever did, but the handle is very smartly designed. It's just a beautiful shape. The issue with these is you have this Andrew Demko thumb plate opener here. That's basically an Amazon Wave just with a thumb plate. and I always thought these thumb plates do not work as well as an Amazon Wave, and they're not as enjoyable as, for example, normal thumb studs. The issue with this XL Talwar here is if you do not wave it out too very quickly out of your pocket, because that tip runs up so high, you can potentially end up cutting your pants if you are too slow on it. So you have to give it a nice and quick pull to wave it out. Yeah, like I said, I did never like the thumb plates, the Andrew Demko thumb plates too much as a wave opener, and also it's not as nice to open up one-handed as, for example, like a thumb stud. You can also add a wave to one of these Voyagers here. I think the Snaggletooth MF is what it's called. They make aftermarket wave openers for your cold steel knives and for other knives as well. But I do always leave the thumb studs on here. I think it's just it just works better. And if you are in a stressful situation, you can open up a thumb stud knife very quickly as well. You can also open it up two-handed if you are if you need to open it up quickly. So I do not think it's an issue. You do not necessarily need a wave opener on a self-defense knife if that's the purpose you want to use it for. Yeah. Like I said, I added some lanyards on here. It makes it a lot easier for appendix carry to get a hold of this and grab it out. Most of the times I do not carry this in my pocket or appendix. I do just throw it in like a camera bag. If I need to cut up some wood or stuff like that for photography and something like this, or I do throw it in the car. This is a nice car knife also. You just have it in your car, you have it ready, you can chop up small things, you can cut a lot of wood and stuff like that. I keep saying stuff like that too often. I'm sorry guys, I apologize. So yeah, a car knife, a car camping knife, these XL folders work perfectly for that. Alright people, it's actually the next day, but for you it's still the same video. Before I bring this video to an end, I want to talk about two more things. And the first thing is I want to talk you through each of these blades individually and give you kind of an summary of the things that I said in this video and some more things that I didn't mention. So we start up with the Cold Steel Espada. The Espada is probably the most recognizable XL folder that they make. This one is a little bit heavier than the other two. It's also thicker in grind. Like I said, we have 0.5 to 0.66 millimeters behind the edge, which is 20 thousandths to 26 thousandths. So it does lend itself more for the chopping rather than for the slicing. It has a nice and long cutting edge though, and a very beautiful and wide swedge up here. Like I said, historically inspired design, very beautiful. A little bit heavier, not as thick on the spine, but thick in the grind, which makes it a little bit more hefty. Also, another thing on this knife is that the G10 is actually smooth, so it will not rip up your pockets. You do not have a lanyard hole for the people that care about that. This handle here is a little bit of a controversial thing probably, because this is a handle that forces you into position. So because you have those cutouts here, I have small hands by the way, so if you have a medium or larger hand, this will be a little bit of a tighter fit for you. So it forces you into this position and you cannot move around as much. But the good thing is you can choose in here between a hammer or a saber grip, however you like that. And then you have this pistol grip back here. It almost feels like a sub-hilt knife, and it also holds you very securely in here. Like I said, this knife excels at the chopping, so it actually feels good to hold it further back. Yeah, that's the Espada. I didn't bought I thought about buying the fancy version, but I didn't, because the fancy version has nice and polished bolsters and a satin blade. Also has very nice polished G10, but I thought about I always use my knives, so I would definitely scratch the fancy version up. The fancy version, in my opinion, looks like the Mexican drug dealer, drug cartel lord knife to me. Obviously it was not made for that, but I think the fancy version is just the Mexican drug lord. knife. And I'm pretty sure there is at least one of those people out there that carries one of these every single day. Anyways, the Espada, very, very nice design and very well made overall. I do really like it design-wise. And it's a little bit more expensive as the for example, the Voyager series or some of the other Excel folders that they make. Yeah, so that's everything about the Espada, I think. And then we talk about the Talwar. The Talwar can't speak. The Talwar has this nice and long cutting edge with the upswept point. Like I said, a little bit of problems if you do not wave it out fast enough. But the grind is really slicey. It has a really thin edge of about 0.26 millimeters behind the edge, which is 10 thousandths. For a production knife, that's really, really good. Cold Steel always did a good job on their geometries, on their blades. I do not think that you need an XL folder in CTS XHP. I mentioned that. This is a discontinued knife. If you try to find one of these, I wouldn't care if it's CTS XHP or just AUS 8. I did mention that I do not like Cold Steel's AUS 8, but on a knife like this, it's not as important, in my mind at least. The texturing on the G10 is a little bit more coarse. It's not super aggressive, like for example on the Recon series, and also it will smooth down over time. But I did smooth it down a little bit underneath my pocket clip, so I do not damage my pockets as quickly. The chimping up here is really beautiful because it goes all the way through the lock bar and also through the G10. It's not a thing that you see on a lot of Cold Steels. Frankly, I do not think that you see this on any Cold Steel that they make now. The handle here kind of guides you into position. It doesn't force you into position like on the Espada. It kind of guides you in a little bit more. You have those finger grooves, and they put you in a saber grip. You can hold it in a hammer grip, but it's a little bit more uncomfortably because you will land on those grooves, but it's not a big deal for a short period of time. But it's definitely made for the saber grip. In the middle here it feels really good, and you can also hold it back here, but it's obviously much more secure. In this position, this is where it excels because you get the slashing power. This is not as heavy as, for example, the Espada, which has 263 grams, 9.2 ounces. This has just 231 grams, 8.1 ounces, which is a lot more easier to carry. And that's also the reason it's not as hefty when chopping. So it also has a thinner blade stock. Or I should say it tapers down much more quicker, so it excels at the slashing much more. This is one of the nicest designs that Cold Steel ever put out in my mind. I wish they would bring this back. Because it's discontinued, I cannot tell you what the prices are gonna be. Probably everything that people demand for it. I wouldn't pay everything above $200 or euros for a discontinued Talwar. You should be well below that, and especially for the AUS 8 versions. Everything above, I would really think about if you would still pay this money. Quality-wise, like I said, it's the worst out of all of these three, but it's still a really great design, and I still really like mine. I have a lot of sentimental value. Mine has a lot of sentimental value because I own it for a long time now, and I always like the Talwar series from Cold Steel. Here's the large Talwar. I think they are just beautiful, beautiful knives. So that being said, we move up to the Voyager. The Voyager series is the one that has the only thumb studs, but on the Voyager series you can choose between a bunch of different versions. You have a much more robust Tanto grind, then you have this very nice and slicey clip point here with the thin tip and a really good cutting geometry. You have the crazy crisp blade that's definitely designed to be only a self-defense knife and nothing more. And then you have the Vaquero. The Vaquero is also very beautiful blade shape. If you go with one of the, if you think about going with one of these serrations or one of the models that has serrations, I would first think about if you really need serrations. If it's just intended to be a self-defense knife, serrations are very good, very effective. And but if you will use it for other things as well, I would think about the plain edge, because serrations will definitely chip much quicker on you if you do stupid stuff with it, which you probably will, because it's an XL folder, and that's kind of the whole thing here. The Voyager series, in my opinion, is the best bang for your buck. They are the most inexpensive. They are really good entry XL folders if you're not sure if you will like XL folders or not. Like I said, very neutral grip. This cutout here also guides you in a little bit, but it doesn't force you in there. So you have a lot of freedom of movement here on your, with your hand. You can hold in a bunch of different grips. You can choose between hammer, saber. Only back here, it holds you in a little bit more securely, which is not bad, because when you do chop with it, you kind of do want that. I did have to smooth down the inside of these scales a little bit because they're a little bit sharp out of the box. Also, you do have to smooth down the scales underneath the pocket clip, because this material will definitely shred your pockets. Some people do not like that Grivex material here. I do not have a problem at all with it, although I usually do not like plasticky handle scales. But just remember, you do need to dremel down the material underneath the clip, maybe bend up the clip a little bit and smooth the inside out, which is not a big deal. Some people hate when they have to do modifications on the knife out of box, but I don't think it's a big deal. These are the perfect uses. You have the most blades to choose from, and they are just really good for the price, and the quality is probably the best out of all the cold steel folders that are on the market right now. The second thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about the blade length here. All of these knives are right in around the blade length of about 13.5 centimeters, which is 5.3, 5.4 inches. And I do not think that this is the ideal blade length for a self-defense knife. And let me show you what I mean. Cold steel always only makes 4-inch blades, so 10 centimeter blade lengths, and then they make these 5-inch blades. And I wish they would make a blade length that's somewhere in between. And it sounds silly because there is not, 1 centimeter more or less. It's not that important, right? But it kind of is, because it would make a lot of difference. It would give you a more compact package overall to carry, and it would also give you a little bit more reach at the same time than like with a 4-inch or 10 centimeter blade lengths. There need to be more blades in this size category. For example, the Cold Steel Spartan is at right about 11.4 centimeters, which is what's that? 4.5 inches. 4.5 inches is a blade length not a lot of manufacturers produce knives in, and it's really a shame, because that would make the perfect self-defense knives, and also really good for EDC and something similar, because you have a lot of reach. You had a ton of cutting edge with a 4.5 inch blade, and at the same time, it's just it would just make a very good self-defense knife. Also, that's the last thing I want to talk about. Now we will continue with the video that I filmed yesterday. Thanks. Alright people, to come to an end of this video, I want to say one more thing. Do I recommend the Cold Steel XL folders? Yes, I highly recommend these knives. These are really good, even though at first you might think it's a little bit stupid, but I really have to come to love these knives here, and I really enjoy them, and I will always have at least one Cold Steel XL folder in my collection, if not 2 or 3 or 4. I don't know yet. I really don't want to buy more of these, but I kind of want to. It's a difficult situation. Once you get in this roller coaster, there is no way out, and you should my recommendation for people that have not bought an XL folder yet is that you should get a large folder if you haven't already from Cold Steel first, like I mentioned the Voyager or the Recon 1 series. Get a large version first, see if you like it. If you do not like one of the large knives, you will not like their XL folders. These are a lot more practical, they are smaller, easier to carry. You're more likely to carry one of these than carry one of these. So if you do not like their large folders, you will not like their XL folders. That being said, to finish this video off, which one of these three is my favorite? Good question from that nobody asked, but I will kind of rate these for you. So I will rate these from least favorite to most favorite. My least favorite of these is the Espada, because the Espada is more heavier, it's heftier, it doesn't slice as good, it's limited in use because of that. It's made better for the whole chopping thing, which it's still a folding knife. So I do have my chopping knives, you know, and those are all fixed blades. I do not need a folder that does chop things too much. That being said, the Espada is just such a nice design. Design-wise, I really enjoy it. I like to look at it. I like to handle it. Yeah, but the weight and the limits that it has in use just put it at third place for me. Then the second knife here is the Talwar. I really like the Talwar for the design and for its capabilities. It's just a really, really great knife. But because of the quality and because of the prices, I can't. It's not my most favorite. Also, it has the whole thumb disc thing, which I do not like as much. That being said, I think this looks the coolest out of all of these. I'm such a sucker for the Talwar design. Anyways, my most favorite of these is the one that I use the most. Surprise, surprise. The knives that you carry the most are the ones that you actually really like. I'm a huge sucker for clip points, by the way. If I haven't mentioned that, I think I always mention this in almost every single of my videos. I really enjoy clip points. And that's no surprise that I like this one as well. This is the one that I use the most for normal stuff, and I carry the most, and I think it has the best price to performance ratio. Like I said, the AUS 10 is really good stuff. I do enjoy it, even though it's just like a mid-tier steel, but it really works well as a user. Yeah, that being said, if I could only keep one, this would be the one that I would go with. Even this one has much more sentimental value to me, and this one looks much more cooler. Both of these look much more cooler than this one. This is the one that I would go with. It has the best build quality. It's just nice. It's just a nice knife. And yeah, that being said, I think that's everything I have to say right now. I will leave you with a little bit of a montage at the end. I will leave you with a montage at the end of this video. Hope you guys liked it. I hope it wasn't too long. And yeah, have a nice day. Goodbye, people.
Look at this. I gotta clean all of that up now.